From NBC News in Washington, this is Meet the Press with Tim Russert.
The press, our issue this Sunday morning, the presidency in crisis. Will Bill Clinton survive? We'll ask the lawyer for former White House intern Monica Lewinsky, Mr. William Ginsburg.
Yes, we can.
Why hasn't the president told the nation everything he knows about the allegations? We'll ask his friend and advisor, James Carville. Could these charges lead to resignation or impeachment? We'll talk with an important member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, former prosecutor Arlen Specter, Republican from Pennsylvania. And in our political roundtable, the man who broke this explosive story, Michael Isikoff of Newsweek, legal expert Stuart Taylor of the National Journal, New York Times columnist William Safire, and the publisher of the infamous Drudge Report on the internet, Matt Drudge. Then we turn to the Pope's historic pilgrimage to Cuba. What will it mean to the future of Fidel Castro and the people of Cuba? Joining us from Havana, two important cardinals in the Catholic Church, John O'Connor of New York, Bernard Law of Boston. But first, the very latest on the crisis at the White House. Let's go to NBC's David Bloom. David, good morning.
Good morning, Tim.
Before we begin, let me show our viewers and you the latest NBC poll. As you can see, the president has lost 15 points in favorable rating in just the last week. And when asked specifically whether or not he is less than honest, nearly 70%, 7 out of 10 Americans believe he has been guarded or less than honest in responding to these allegations. David, does the White House know how serious politically the president is being hurt by this scandal allegations?
Tim, the White House has seen these polls. The president's closest advisors acknowledge that with each passing day, the country is losing faith in Mr. Clinton. But what they've decided is that this is no longer merely about political damage control. It's about the president's survival. And on that count, the lawyers have won. They argue that the president could only be impeached or forced to resign if he committed a crime, if he committed perjury, or if he tampered with witnesses, or committed obstruction of justice. So until they know what evidence independent counsel Kenneth Starr has arrayed against the president, until they know for sure that Monica Lewinsky is going to cooperate with the independent counsel's office, don't expect to hear from the president, not today or tomorrow, not in the State of the Union, not for the foreseeable future.
There are reports in the Washington Post today that the White House is prepared to attack Monica Lewinsky as unstable if she cooperates with Kenneth Starr's investigation.
Tim, they're ready to do that, but they've got to hold their fire. She's not agreed to cooperate yet, and they don't want to drive her into Kenneth Starr's arms. The other factor to consider is that anything they do to say she's untrustworthy or unstable undercuts the story that Vernon Jordan is telling. Why did the president's closest friend and advisor go to such great lengths to get Lewinsky a lawyer, to get her a job, if she's such an untrustworthy person?
David Bloom, thank you for joining us. We'll be talking to you throughout the day and all week long on NBC News. Joining us now, the attorney for former White House intern Monica Lewinsky is William Ginsburg. Mr. Ginsburg, welcome to Meet the Press.
Thank you, Mr. Russell.
You've been having discussions with independent counsel Kenneth Starr's office. What are the state of those discussions?
They are still open. As the saying goes, the ball is still in the air. We are having cordial discussions. We've been together by telephone, and I'm very hopeful that we'll continue those today.
Monica Lewinsky, in an affidavit, said under oath she did not have a sexual relationship with Bill Clinton. Is that the truth?
I cannot broach the attorney-client privilege. I can tell you that she stands on that statement.
But she also told her friend Linda Tripp she did. Why didn't she go before the grand jury and just tell the truth and say which version is correct?
We are frozen in place because we are in jeopardy. As long as there is a threat of criminal prosecution, she has an absolute right under the Constitution not to incriminate herself. It's called her Fifth Amendment right.
If Monica Lewinsky agrees with Kenneth Starr to cooperate, is granted immunity, will she tell all?
Yes. We are delighted. We are dying to tell the story, but we cannot. We are frozen in place. We want to cooperate. We have indicated that we will cooperate to the extent that I will remain in Washington as long as it takes to see that the truth in every detail, wherever it may fall, comes out.
Kenneth Starr is concerned that his relationship with Wed Hubble and Susan McDougal, where people promise to cooperate and then they go south. Will Monica Lewinsky give him all the information that she knows about this situation?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, unequivocally, and there's no part of yes that is equivocal.
Mr. Starr and his people went to Monica Lewinsky's apartment on Thursday and did a search. What did they find?
First of all, that was a consensual search. It was originally scheduled for Tuesday and delayed for administrative reasons until Thursday. They found exactly what they told us they were looking for. We hid nothing. Some hat pins, some hats, some T-shirts, all of which were normal materials that she received in her course and scope of employment as a White House intern.
There are reports that there may be some dresses or a dress with DNA evidence. Were any dresses taken?
That's a salacious comment. It's a salacious comment because I would assume that if Monica Lewinsky had a dress that was sullied or dirtied, she would have had it cleaned. I know of no such dress.
But did they take some of her clothing?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. They took her computer, which is normal, and we expected it. They took her black and blue pantsuits and dresses, and they took several other items. A book of poetry that was signed in an inconspicuous way by the president, and a few other items.
Inconspicuous?
Well, it had no meaning. It was his best wishes or something like that. It said President Bill Clinton.
If no deal is arranged with Ken Starr, we have reported Monica Lewinsky is due Tuesday to testify before a grand jury here in Washington. That is also the day of the State of the Union. Would you be prepared to postpone her testimony out of respect for the State of the Union?
Yes. In fact, if indeed we are required to go forward, and you know I'm not permitted to comment on any grand jury proceeding.
Understood.
But if these rumors are correct, that the grand jury proceeding is set for Tuesday, I'm sure it was done inadvertently. I must feel that way. You know, Tim, this is my country, just like it's yours, and I think the State of the Union address should go forward unfettered, and this should not interfere with the State of the Union address.
The Washington Post reports today that the White House is waiting for Monica Lewinsky to make her decision. And if in fact she cooperates with Kenneth Starr and testifies under oath she had a sexual relationship with the President of the United States, they are prepared to attack her as being unstable.
It's a viable approach and defense. If it's true, I think as your lead-in to this show indicated, Mr. Bloom indicated, it's foolish. How could they have put her in a position of such trustworthiness and concern? How could they have helped her get jobs, including with responsible companies, large companies, if she was so unstable? You would think over the time she was in government service, they would have noted this prior to today.
Her jobs at the White House, the Pentagon, job offers at the United Nations, and she was called impressive by Vernon Jordan.
She is impressive. She's a very bright young lady.
Does she want to get her story out?
Oh, yes. Yes. Unequivocally, yes.
Kenneth Starr, his tactics, has he been overzealous in his treatment of your client?
Judge Starr and his staff are excellent people. I have had cordial relations with them. I have nothing but the highest praise for their professionalism and their attitude. I don't approve of some of their tactics, and that's because they're not nice, not because they're illegal. But I think they are very, very professional.
Do you believe that Kenneth Starr is out to get the President of the United States?
Oh, I don't take a position on that. I represent a client. I represent a young girl. My job is to relieve her from the jeopardy that she's in, not to take political positions. And I don't take political positions, and I don't ascribe motive to anyone.
Do you believe the President of the United States is in trouble?
Yes. I'm right in there in that poll that you used in your lead-in. I'm consistent with the majority of the American public.
Newsweek magazine reports today that he will be forced to admit a sexual relationship with Monica Lewinsky.
I haven't read Newsweek magazine yet this week, and I don't know what he'll be forced to admit. That will be up to him.
As you know, he testified under oath in a deposition in the Paula Jones case, contrary to that.
I don't know that. My understanding is that Judge Wright in Little Rock has placed a broad gag order on that case, and I must classify that as a leak and not something that is known as a matter of fact, because that deposition is under seal.
Do you believe the President can survive this crisis?
I don't know. I don't want to call myself a country lawyer, but I certainly am not a beltway lawyer, and I'm not a political pundit.
Does it influence you, affect you in any way, to know that the fate of the country, the fate of Bill Clinton, is in effect in your hands and in Monica Lewinsky's hands?
In addition to the fact that I don't believe that the government of the United States is in Monica Lewinsky's hands or in my hands, short of that, you betcha it scares me. It scares me that my country could be in this kind of a crisis. I'm not political, but I am a citizen of this country, and I do respect the presidency.
Will that weigh into or factor into your decisions?
I'm a human being. It has to factor into my decisions, and I will consider that, of course.
So there is a chance that Monica Lewinsky could go before Kenneth Starr and say, the truth is, I had no sexual relationship.
I will not broach the attorney-client privilege. That's an inviolable right that she's entitled to maintain.
Is there anything else you'd like to say to the American people this morning, Mr. Ginsburg?
No, sir. I really have nothing to say. We are available, open to talk. Once we're out of jeopardy, we will cooperate every way, and there is no exception to that promise.
Mr. Ginsburg, we thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Russell.
Now we go to talk to Arlen Specter, an important member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, a former prosecutor. Mr. Specter, based on what you have heard about these allegations of the President of the United States, if they in fact are true, will the President be forced to resign or face impeachment?
Tim, I believe it is very important at this point not to answer hypothetical questions, but to try to put the media frenzy behind us and to allow the President to go on with his business. I would say this, I do not believe the Congress is going to impeach the President unless there is an open and shut case. And I believe if there is an open and shut case, conclusive, that the President will resign. So I do not think that the country is going to be put through this trauma. The House is not going to vote impeachment. The Senate's not going to sit on articles unless it's open and shut. And if it comes to that, I don't think the President will stay in office.
Mr. Specter, is the simple fact of a president having sex with a White House intern, absent perjury or obstruction of justice, enough for a president to resign?
It may well be. There is a different question as to resignation contrasted with grounds for impeachment. To be impeached, the Constitution calls for high crimes and misdemeanors, and I think that would require perjury or obstruction of justice for impeachment.
Why have the Republicans been so quiet about this?
Because I think that we Republicans are very much concerned about what's happening to the country, and we do not want to add to the clash and clamor. We realize that the President has very important business to do. I was very distressed to see when the President was with Arafat that the media asked him a question, and I was a little surprised that the President would answer a question. And on the State of the Union speech on Tuesday, there's going to be a big cloud hanging over the House chamber as we all gather there to hear the President. So that I think we really want to see what is going to happen here. I think we do feel that it would be the best course to find out what the facts are at the earliest possible time, and that it would be very useful if the President would fulfill what he said last Thursday and come forward and tell us exactly what happened. This is not a criminal prosecution. Nobody wants to see President Clinton go to jail. The defense, criminal defense, works customarily to try to find out what the prosecution has, what the evidence is against, to sort of tailor the defense. A criminal defense, for my years as a prosecutor, it's sort of a cat and mouse game, and I don't think that that sort of an approach is appropriate here. We're really looking at how we're going to govern this country. And we cannot be held up for a protracted period of time when there are so many important issues facing the country, Iraq, the budget, and the State of the Union, so that we need to get to the facts. And in the meantime, I want to see the media frenzy hold and see if we can't let the President carry on his duties.
Arlen Specter, Senator from Pennsylvania, we thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Tim. Nice to be here.
And joining us now, a friend and advisor to an embattled President Clinton, James Carville. Mr. Carville, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Mr. Carville, Mr. Carville, did the President of the United States have sex with an intern in the White House?
The President emphatically denies it, and denies that anything improper happened between him and this young woman, and has denied it to his staff, has denied it to the news media, has denied it to the American people, and denied it to his cabinet, and denied it to his friends. I can't be any more emphatic about that.
Have you spoken with the President?
I'll never get into characterize whether I spoke to the President or not, but I know of all of these denials, and I know the President emphatically denies it.
Do you believe the President?
I do.
As you know, in 1992, the president, then Governor Clinton, emphatically denied Jennifer Flowers' story of an affair, of a sexual relationship, and you, James Carville, said it was trash and not to be believed. The president has now admitted he had an affair with Jennifer Flowers. Why are we to believe President Clinton now when he in fact did not tell the truth then?
The first thing is we're going on a leaked deposition, somebody's account of a leaked deposition. The second thing is that I think Mr. McCurry said that what the president said in that deposition was consistent with what he told American people in 1992. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to Jennifer Flowers now in the middle of this. I mean, I don't know for what purpose that serves, but if that's where we are, that's fine. I mean, we have to remember how we got here. This started out as a $40,000 land deal that lost money, and about $50 million, and 5 years later, after nobody could find anything, we wiring up people in hotels, feeding them whiskey, trying to get them to talk and everything else. This is a scuzzy investigation, and I guarantee you one thing, that when the facts come out, people are going to be repulsed by this. And right now, we have the independent counsels engaged in a systematic leak of grand jury information. Everything is one side of the story. Let this come out. I can tell the American people that there's a complete other side to this story. In due course, this will get told. And what we're seeing right now is the president under siege because for a simple fact that we are having selective grand jury leaks, and that we got the independent counselors around trying to tape 24-year-old women in hotel bars and taking them up to a room and threatening their parents and that kind of foolishness. Well, there's another side of the story in America. Just hang in there because it'll be coming. But I guarantee you that.
Mr. Carville, 70% of the American people are saying that the president has been less than honest in talking about this. Why doesn't... Let me just finish.
Right.
Why doesn't he just come forward and say, I never touched Monica Lewinsky, I never had any kind of relationship? Why? The difficulty is when people hear about gifts and dresses and books of poetry, Vernon and Jordan trying to find her jobs, job offers from the United Nations, job at the White House, jobs at the Pentagon, they view it as very preferential treatment for a lowly White House intern.
Well, now I can get to my answer. The first thing is according to Mr. Ginsburg, gives us some Walt Whitman poems with best wishes, Bill Clinton. The president said that there was no improper sexual relationship between he and this woman. Again, let me emphasize that. The president said there was no improper sexual relationship. The reason that 70% of the people like this is because the independent counsel is engaged in a systematic campaign to leak grand jury information, which is contrary to the law. The reason that this has happened is because there's this concerted effort to, quote, get the president. We're taping people in young women in hotel bars. We're taking them up. We're threatening their parents. And there's another side of the story. And I tell you, the American people are fair, and they're concerned about this, and they're going to be listening in the coming weeks, and they're going to be listening in the coming months. And I will guarantee them that as this unfolds in due course, that they'll see exactly what happened. This is nothing but the president, but Mr. Starr, who couldn't get the president on anything else, whose investigation was falling apart, trying to go to the same thing he did before, some kind of sleazy sex business, and I think the country is going to be repulsed by this entire thing.
When the president says no improper sexual relationship, does improper mean any kind of sex?
Look, everybody, improper, American people know what improper means. The president knows what improper means, and yes, it means any kind of sex.
If, in fact, James Carville, a Republican president, had sex with a White House intern, would you view that Republican president as morally fit to stay in office?
Well, first of all, I don't want to respond to hypotheticals, and secondly, if that president denied that it happened, I think I would do what most people would do. I would sit and I would watch as the complete evidence unfolds, and I think that's what we have to do here. I think that, if that Republican president were accused by this by an independent counsel who broke the country spending money, and whose people were out leaking every day, and who was wiring people up in hotel bars and threatening to arrest their parents and all the foolishness that we see coming out of Mr. Starr's operation, I don't know, I'd probably be even skeptical there if it was a Republican.
There are reports in the Washington Post today that if, in fact, Monica Lewinsky cooperates with Kenneth Starr, they will conduct a campaign to describe her as unstable.
Well, I talked to a lot of people at the White House this week. I talked to reporters from the Washington Post this week at length. I don't know anything about that. And no one has ever told me to go out and characterize this woman as that. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that somebody didn't say that, but I think I would know if it was going to be some kind of a strategy that was in place. I suspect that, as Mr. Ginsburg said, it's something that is available, but I don't know anything about it. I don't have any plans to do it myself. I think that the real focus here is on the methods of the independent counsel, on the motives of the independent counsel, and what's going on here. And I think that's what people want to hear about. And I think that they're going to hear a lot about it in the coming weeks and months.
Resignation. Has there been any talk of resignation at the White House?
Absolutely not. You know, a lot of people that were served the president are resigning their jobs to go help the president, but that's just a, you know, I mean, what you're going to see here, Tim, is you're going to see a lot of stuff. You're going to see these leaks. You're going to see a lot of people talking. You're going to see a lot of discussion. And I think that the strategy is very good. It's in essence to the old rope-a-dope strategy. Just let them have their leaks. They got 20 hours to take. No one is verifying what's on here. If you have the account that I just read of the latest thing, this Tripp woman is trying to set this person up. So let's let all this get out. Let them go. Let them throw their best punches. And, you know,